now. Excellent. So welcome everybody. Thanks for attending. My name is James Gress. I lead an Accenture North America Advanced DevOps Center from our Tampa Advanced Technology Center location. Looking forward to continuing the great talks we've had in 2021. We put this group together to share all things DevOps and to see the latest in the space. We're always looking for speakers, so if you're interested, please drop me a note. Some quick guidelines. This will be a recorded event and posted on YouTube. So please mute unless you're asking a question to help reduce any unnecessary background. We do encourage video. It helps make everyone feel more socially engaged. And at the end, we'll open it up for questions. And if you just want to keep track of them, you feel free to put them in the chat window. Today, we're going to talk about Terraform and Vault. And we have Ray that's going to give us a demonstration of that and tell us the benefits of why we would want to do that. And I'm going to turn it over to him to continue on. Ray, all yours.
Hey, James, thanks so much. Pleasure to be with you all today. I live up in the opposite end of the country, Bend, Oregon, so in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit different than Tampa Bay, I have to admit. I love Florida. I lived there for 5 years, a whole lot of fun. I also want to bring up to your attention that you actually have Terraform's technical marketing manager lives in the Bay Area, or the Tampa Bay area. That's Kyle, who's on this call today too. So make sure you say hello when you all get to actually meet up face to face, hopefully in the very near future, sooner than later. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, go through some material, talk a little bit about what we talk to our customers about, give some examples of Terraform, as well as a quick little demo, and then also jump into Vault. Maybe this will go into full screen eventually. Okay, Blosky, I'm a field CTO. I've been at HashiCorp for about a year and a half now. Before that, I was at Red Hat for about 12 and a half years, running their OpenShift practice and their middleware practice. And a little bit about HashiCorp. Well, the way you can count it, have 6, 8 different open source projects out there available for you to be able to consume as a practitioner. So everything from provisioning infrastructure to having a consistent control plane for security with the Vault, to being able to connect your existing legacy systems with your machines and services in the cloud with Console, being able to deploy out whether you're using Node and NPM, Rake and Ruby, Maven and Java to your local devices or out into EC2 or into AKS in a consistent workflow. That's a new project that just came out in October. If you'd like a simplified scheduler, one that doesn't need as many brain cells as you need to be able to run Kubernetes, and you want something just simple that just works, you should definitely check out by Roblox to be able to scale up and scale down and schedule many, many containers, jars, and VMs. And then another new project that just came out in October is called Boundary, which allows you to be able to connect and have real fine-grained controls on who can connect to what ephemeral instances. The DBAs can only use the app, dev folks can only connect to the app, servers, et cetera, et cetera. But encourage you to be able to go check that out as well. So about quite a bit with our, we have about 300 different conversations in a week with executives about where they are and how to be able to get to where they'd like to be. But a lot of folks still like to use ITIL, the queues for an application team to be able to, one, to get some VIPs and be able to get traffic their apps, and then 3, to make sure that they punch holes in a given firewall at a given time. And so a developer typically goes through this chain or an app dev team of opening up tickets in ServiceNow or Jira or whatever you're using to be able to walk through the compute and the firewall and the load balancing team. The challenge is this takes a long time. The time to value is from code commit to actually getting into production can sometimes take, even if you're pretty skilled, 2 weeks to be able to get your your VMs, but stood up another 8 weeks to be able to get your VIPs, and another 12 weeks to get the right holes and approvals through the firewall. All of a sudden, you're looking at, we've seen this on a regular occasion, folks going from, oh, a commit to 22 weeks later, actually seeing that in production to be able to pivot. And that's a real problem. And this is why we all talk about DevOps on a regular occasion. If you have this type of flow, no tool is going to be able to fix you. As a matter of fact, if you think about adding different cloud teams, whether that's for Azure or for AWS or for GCP, adding another silo of folks that actually have to answer tickets and be able to have swivel chair integration, turn around, click to be able to create that resource group, let's say, and the networking group, and the compute up in the cloud really causes that time to value to actually expand quite a bit more. One of the top 3, I can't really tell you which one, and while they didn't do this on purpose, it just kind of grew organically. The time to go from actual code commit to actual production was over 72 steps. And that meant that time to value for those teams to actually get that changes up into their deployments were once every 10 months. You can't really iterate, you can't really move quickly when you're using just an ITIL-based system. HashiCorp be able to address some challenges, that workflow problem for you unless that. So in our world, what we try to recommend is that you create a way to enable developers to have self-service and be able to interact with each other through a contract or an API in this particular case. So that coupling between the various different teams is much less tight, and you're able to actually have folks be able to have some self-service around that. Service allows us to go a whole lot faster, but with that comes a whole lot of dangerous changes. So how do we get there? Well, if we look at what most organizations are using to be able to judge themselves on the effectiveness of getting to the DevOps Research and Assessment Group, Nicole Foskren, Jez Humble, Gene Kim, the Phoenix Project guys, they talk 2 around speed and 2 around stability. Folks in that top quadrant are moving much more quickly there in the bottom quartile. So we see folks like Etsy being able to deploy at will, or Amazon, or even banks nowadays are pushing 3,000 deployments per month, as well as they're moving much faster with their time from code commit to time of code deployment. Some great blogs even of how GitHub has reduced theirs down to 45 minutes between code commit and pushing out to a production environment. And you'll get the links in the bottom when I'm done with the presentation. I send it off to James. And when they're also faster, they're also making a whole lot less mistakes. So they're making 7 times less mistakes, and they're much faster, and they'll be able to react to those. And these are numbers that come out of the State of DevOps report every single month. And I guess tying this back to be able to talk to your bosses or management or your clients about is folks that can actually get this rapid developer velocity are outperforming their economic peers by 400. So I said in the beginning that I live in Bend, Oregon. I have on the planet that I drive by every single day on my way to get coffee. Talk about a testament to disruption. They were one of those that were in a bottom quartile that just got out competed by others because they were able to pivot and move to be able to try and experiment and push new services out to the consumer. Apparently my internet connection is unstable, so please let me know if I start to break up. The whole idea of this interface in the past around having a developer team open up tickets to be able to talk to operations that would have swivel chair integration, vCenter, or with or clicking through the Azure portal or what have really causes a whole lot of challenges and problems. And this is where we bring in the idea of infrastructure, where you can have the operations templates of what a good stack looks like, and be able to provide an API or a GUI or any way for those developers to be able to interact automatically with one another. What this does is that we are able to have a list which has a definition of what we expect that infrastructure to look like. So what the network stack looks like, the resource groups, the load balancers, the compute, et cetera, in a way that's independent of actual execution or folks being able to go through a punch list or a checklist. And what's also nice is it gives us an up-to-date document that can always be used for regulation so that it's clean and consistent. And this is where Terraform enters. Not sure how many folks use Terraform or know it, but the whole idea around this is it's a way for folks to be able to have that declarative format versus creating a whole lot of scripts, and that we can have continuous execution or independent applications. So if I say I want 3 nodes in that cluster, there'll be 3 nodes in that cluster no matter how many times I run that particular script. And it gives us a way to be able to create blueprints or a way for folks to be able to interact with it, UI or via URLs, et cetera, et cetera. So what it comes down to, infrastructure as code has a code and it has a language. You can either use JSON or what we call HashiCorp configuration language, or HCL. And that's available in any one of our given products at this point in time. In this particular case, we have a resource that happens to be a Google Compute instance. We assign it a name and then provide a bunch of different variables about what it is, what type of disk image we'd like, as well as another resource, simple record. We assign it the variable hello with it needs in order to create an A record in this case. So Terraform itself has a core as well as a whole bunch of different modules or providers. I'll get into a little bit about what both those are. But the core itself reads and interprets configuration modules or files and modules. It also maintains state. So if I say I'd like to be able to create a system on day 0, that's great. It always changes and evolves over time, that stack of what you actually have in your environment. Well, that state file or state management is part of what Terraform Core addresses, as well as the idea of being able to execute a run or a plan. That's part of this particular core portion. It communicates with the providers. The providers are something that you probably see, or what a lot of the value is this ecosystem around Terraform. So there's over 300 providers out there and available for you today for everything from your cloud provider, so GCP or Azure or LA Cloud, or even for Kubernetes, for vSphere, but as well as things a little bit up the stack, infrastructure as service, but also things such as your Datadog. Since your application needs to be able to have telemetry and observability, these are things that you want to be able to recreate it with the system. And then when you're ready to take it away, it should be able to decommission those as well. And also things such as for GitHub and for F5 that you can actually provision out with Terraform itself with the providers that are available. And you go ahead to terraform.io and go take a look at the registry. You'll see tons and tons of different providers, as well as modules, or folks that actually have created ways to create some specifics on top of what you're already using. Like I use the modules and the providers for things such as my own local kube cluster to be able to provision out the metal LB so that I can get the same type if I was in one of the public cloud providers. So once you have your definitions of your templates, and you've picked out which providers you actually need, you can, Terraform works by doing either Terraform Plan or Terraform Apply. And in this particular case, what it gives us is what we're actually going to be changing based off of what we have within our definitions. I'm not sure if you'll be able to read it from there. This is creating an AWS instance based off of a particular AMI and a particular region of the West, and it's the size of a T2 micro. The Terraform has a lot of different options for you to be able to. So as an individual contributor, you want to be able to start to play with it. Go and take a look at learn.terraform.com, and there's a whole bunch of different tutorials to get yourself started. The open interface, it's pretty straightforward to be able to do for small Terraform state held locally. Centralization, there's no collaboration. So think of it like Git. And then the second option is Terraform Cloud. Think of that much more like a little bit more like GitHub. Actually still use the command line interface, but we go in and we talk out to shared service. In this case, it's at app.terraform.io. And then we can connect that into a version control system, whether that's Azure DevOps or Git, or you pick your flavor that you like, as well as you're able to actually invoke it via API. And there's different editions of that, of the cloud edition, that allows you to be able to use it for small teams, all the way through full-fledged enterprises that need and SOC 2 types regulatory compliance and auditing and the like. And if you're one of those that still likes to be able to host your own for whatever reason, you have to be able to be air gapped. This is another edition. So pretty much think of the cloud every so often, taking a snap, bring it out as a shipped software. So this allows you to be able to have this, either we can be able to host the provisioning jobs for you on cloud, or if you need to, it's a lot of large enterprises like to be able to use the enterprise edition as well. So what's nice about Terraform is that you have the ability to actually reuse a lot of the templates, and variables is a way so that you can actually go and apply them. You can have key value pairs or multiple different types of variables for everything from your endpoints to what your client IDs are, your passwords, in a way so that you can reuse it for your dev test stage environments, or reuse particular templates for various different projects. And you're able to also, it's nice, it has it so that you can mask your password so you can't actually see it. I'll show you this part of the demo. The idea is to be able to increase your, while reducing your risk of actually embedding those types of credentials or source control. So the second a hacker actually gets onto your network, they go and try to take a look at those AWS keys or those passwords that happen to be committed into those repos that you might have. So this is a nice way so that you can avoid that type of challenge. And again, with the deck, you'll get some links on how we actually use it, how we pass in those given variables. I had some questions this morning around things such as we'll pass in multiple different types of variables at the same time. These types of links will be able to get you to that given point. And odds are that you might have infrastructure out there already. You know, a lot of stuff's not greenfield, right? That's out there in the public cloud. Well, there's a concept called Terraform import, which will take the existing infrastructure that you already have and push it into that state file. So it won't go out and read your GCP infrastructure and then rewrite and build out code for you, although that probably will be coming very, very soon. And there is some things from Google that is doing that. It's a nice way for you to be able to start building your infrastructure as code bit by bit by bit in a clean way, so that you can then constantly use it time and time again. So existing stuff can then all into this newer world that's immutable architecture, where you can tear it back down and rebuild it on command daily, nightly, or whenever. It does run locally. It's not in the cloud yet. You might have to set up equivalent local variables in something called a that's usually called a workspace in cloud, but I don't know if I'll have much time to be able to get into that specifically. But a workspace is just pretty much a way to encapsulate the work for a project per environment at this point in time. Things that you can do on Learn, I just grabbed one of the given 9 tutorials on just how you'd be able to use it to be able to be successful within a given team, and how you can actually start to be able to use it as a user. Into taking your first steps into starting to use Terraform Cloud, how to access it via github.com, how you can actually create run triggers between different projects. So lots of really cool material out there for you to be able to take a look at. And so while automated self-service of being able, it's really cool and makes it much, much faster, you're exposing your organization and yourself to a whole lot of risk a lot of times. So there's a concept that we have, and a technology is part of the enterprise editions called Sentinel. And this is not just infrastructure as code, but it's policy as code. So back in the day when I had hair and I wanted to be able to take an application and get it onto a public, on the public internet, I called up the data center and said to the guys that were working there, hey, can you just move that patch cable around the firewall and just plug it directly in? They pretty much would laugh at me and hang right up, right? No. Think about it nowadays. With an S3 bucket, there's literally 2 checkboxes before you can actually get something publicly exposed. These are the kind of things that your global risk and compliance group will probably like to be able to define as sentinel policies. So things like you can't put anything out in public without having somebody be able to approve it and override that policy. You can't spend $5,000 on that particular project team in a month without having somebody override and approve. You also can make it so that folks have operational rigor. No, you cannot deploy that application without having the appropriate sets of tags that we expect this in more effectively. And it's not, yeah, you'll have to create these out of plain cloth at this point in time. We're building out and some of them are based off of the CIS benchmarks. So templates or cookbooks of these foundational policies just pretty much pre-canned into your system on the go. Mentioned a little bit about this, I'll show it to you a bit, but it's really nice that you can integrate it with your VCS, whether that happens to be Azure DevOps, Lab, etc. We see when the whole collaboration goes across the given teams is that you'll have a Terraform Enterprise Edition, and we'll have repositories. Some of them you'll probably use in the public, and some of them will probably be in the private, where you can define the best of breed, or where you need a good or configurations that are specific for your Datadog telemetry, let's say, or your Grafana, how we actually set it up and how you actually want it configured, or how you actually want to set up your own network workspaces, production environments, your staging environments, your development environments. What's the ideal configurations for databases? They look different than an app dev type of system or a compute-based system. And then the security team building out Sentinel policies. And this allows us to have producers be able to produce this in a way that's role-based access control. And then application teams being able to consume this for their various different environments, whether it's their prod of what's the best of breed or the best practices for my given that I need. Oh, I need this, I need that, I need that. And then we know as an organization, it's pretty much falls within that golden 80-20 rule that a lot of the requests that we saw in the beginning with the passing of tickets from person to person, the mundane work pretty much gets automated relatively quickly into the idea of I'd like these particular pieces. I'm going to go through a plan. We're going to check to make sure it doesn't fall short of any of those given policies. If I like what it looks like, I'll hit apply. I have my cloud created for me or my stack created. Real quick, I don't want to go too much heavy into the commercialization. For free, when you use the individual open source, when you have a small team using Terraform Cloud, and then when you add more of the organizational needs, such as the policy and the governance and the auditing or being able to self-host, you'll see it gets into the commercial paid feature sets. A really cool example and a good video of somebody who's really done this for real is State Farm. They have about, I think it's 1,200, 1,800 developers. And they had a larger project that takes about 6 months to deliver their actuarial work. And it was really hard for them to be able to build it out. I mean, it was hard to observe. It wasn't developer friendly. It took forever to be able to deliver it. Nowadays, now that they're using Terraform, they put everything, codified it. They manage their secrets centrally, and now they deploy that every single day. So they tear it down and rebuild it and push it back out in a way that they weren't able to do in the past. And another example is for those folks that still like ITIL and still use ticket-based systems. It's Fortune 500, I think they're out of Jacksonville, as a matter of fact. They're one of the largest payers in the world for folks that do like bill payment for folks. They talk about how they've integrated Terraform Enterprise along with Ansible Tower, along with ServiceNow. Somebody creates a ticket within ServiceNow based off the catalog, a new workspace is created, grabs the appropriate Terraform template, applies the stack, kicks off Ansible Tower, which then goes through and does all the minor configurations within those given containers. It's well worth your 12 minutes of time, or James, I'm more than happy to be able to hook you up with James Bailey from FIS, who's actually spoke about it at HashiCorp last year. So I recommend you try Terraform.cloud, and let's go take a look at it before you do anything else. What's that?
I'm working at FIS.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, James Bailey, he's a pretty stand-up guy. So I am in Terraform Cloud in a particular organization, which is the fields. where I just pretty much I took one of the learn.terraform.com projects. In this case, let's see, here's it. And this one, it just goes into Azure. Why is it going there? Let's go home. Where we have a set of different Terraform files. In this particular case, we have a resource for random pet. Look here. Let's see. It creates a random name for the front of our prefixes. We have a provider for Azure. It then goes and creates Kubernetes based off of some of the standard issues right here that we have. Standard VM, here's our username and password. Just a quick way to be able to create one. And what I did was I created a second resource group in that particular file that I'm just going to push up to my my GitHub so that we can go see, hopefully, if I didn't screw this up again. In Terraform, that we have a plan to start to kick off here, where I just added this Tampa resource group, so it grabbed the commit message, and we can go in and see what it's actually going to be doing. So right now it's doing a plan. So Terraform grabs those configurations, looks at what that file is, compared it to its state file, and said, hey, I'm about to go and create for you this brand new resource group with the name, and it'll have a tag in it saying, hello, Tampa. So if I like it, well, we're still not done with the plan running, but we'll see in a moment. We need a confirmation now to say that. And so what we'll see is that I should have a new resource group being created right now. So we have two here right now. In a moment, apply complete, one new resource added. So now we have this new growing macro resource group within our AWS. Next step is to be able to talk a little bit about Vault, but pause here if there's any questions specific about Terraform before I change gears and walk you through a little bit about Vault at this point in time. Okay. So a lot of folks ask us, why is Vault popular and what is it used for, and the use cases around it. In this particular case, in our traditional data centers that we used to have, we built out a real strong perimeter, where we could assume that we had full control of ingress and egress, even though that was not necessarily true. Or think of it like a candy bar, real hard, crusty out inside that was relatively high trust. Everything on the outside was untrusted. So a moat in the castle is a lot of times, so that security model is, fortunately, people can hop over those walls nowadays. So even in the past, the larger your organization grows, the more there is, so there'll be bad actors within your organization. But also you bring your own devices, mobile devices. The move to hybrid multi-cloud has actually just exacerbated that. So while there's a lot of different ways to mitigate it, you'll never get to 100% secured on that network ever again. So this is where we hear a lot of people say zero, kind of like a hotel lobby, where you'd be really upset if the person from the night before could still get into your room. The lobby itself is open and available, but you're not necessarily everyone in there should be involved. So it changes a lot of things of what we used to think about around secrets management, as well as what we actually can push across those given networks that we don't particularly own. And whether or not you listen to Accenture, or they say $6 trillion in losses by 2021, or Azure, Satya Nadella got up on stage and said it was, I want to say 5.6 million or trillion. The number is pretty large of how much folks are going to be hit by flaws within their systems. And most of that's just done by pure misconfiguration. Get in and then pivot until they can exfil data or compromise your given systems. This is where Vault enters. This is one of our larger products and more successful products. So in the last 10 years, there's been 20 companies that have had massive data breaches over $1 million. And 9 out of 10 of them actually use our technologies nowadays. And the audiences for Vault include 3 different. Your security team who wants to make sure that you have detailed audit, that they can revoke creds when someone leaves the company, can have break the glass types of procedures, that they have really fine-grained access management, that they can govern through policies, and they can expose minimum requests. So developers and app dev teams, a lot of times they would have things such as an applications of properties file that they would just check right into source control with their passwords within it, or spreadsheets with this particular information, or share the PEM files within different home directories. Or managing secrets within things like Jenkins and the various different masters. It gets to be a real challenge. They're told to go encrypt data to make it quote unquote safe. As a developer, I would go out to Stack Overflow and take a look for the most upvoted version of that particular algorithm for my language and copy and paste it into my application in order to be able to close that ticket or assign that. Probably not the best or most safe way to make sure that you can encrypt your data. And then operations teams, they want to be able to rotate their keys, make sure that they can have creds out that are easy to be able to maintain and manage, and make sure that they had high availability and disaster recovery for any of the given credentials. And Vault pretty much addresses all of these different particular use cases. And those use cases can be pretty much boiled down to these 3 major ones, where you have secrets and you can maintain them, whether they're land at rest or network, or the idea of being able to have encryption of your application data. So whether you need something like format preserving encryption for commercial off-the-shelf software, so that the social security numbers still look like social security numbers within that schema, even though you can't get them out without being able to access and play with Vault. Or just being able to rotate the encryption for any given key by having it as a call out from any of your given applications. And then the ability, since now we're moving away from just one particular cloud or on-prem into this hybrid or multi-cloud world, being able to map an aliases, my GitHub account to my AWS IAM or to my Active Directory on-prem or LDAP, etc. And so what we see is that Vault provides to be able to manage and maintain that. So whether or not you want to be able to look at Azure's Active Directory or AWS IAMs or IAMs and GCP or OpenID Connect, ways to be able to use against additional different systems. What to do is provide those given my identity to Vault to prove who I am, so that I can get a temporary token to be able to go access my database, or Vault can go and create a provider with a provider, go and create a temporary account, do my work. That's only around so that you don't have that are lying around for forever. And it can integrate with all these different particular systems. There's engines out there and available for you to be able to do things such as automatically rotate your PKI certs, the ability to be able to store and house your secrets that you do need for access to given systems, the ability to create database passwords and rotate them on a regular occasion, the ability to rotate your SSH keys, the ability to actually do transform, where we can take data and transform it so that the format stays the same. It can be just an encryption as a service. So lots of different ways to be able to use Vault to maintain someone's identity, store secrets, whether they're in static or in dynamic, and also be able to provide a way for you to be able to safely manage and maintain those credentials on a regular occasion.
Freddie Mac uses
Go ahead.
Freddie Mac uses it now. I can't remember why, but there was something over what's in AWS that they liked.
Yeah, I mean, people do, have this pretty much for Terraform and for Vault within each one of the cloud service providers. But if you're using more than one, the workflows that we have here make it a lot more easy for you to be able to have it in just one single spot. Where was I with this? So it's API driven, much like Terraform, where it's all PS driven with a CLI that hooks into that. It's also got a UX that hooks into that too. Web front that you can actually go and play with. The components allow you to be able to identity-based systems. Again, much like Sentinel form for the idea of being able to provision. You can use Sentinel here to be able to create rules and policies about who has access to what particular types of systems and under what particular conditions. While you might trust me in your house at 3 p.m. or in your office at 3 a.m., obviously I'm up to no good if I'm trying to access that, so to speak. And then again, portion where you have the static secrets that can handle that with key value pairs, but also the ability to rotate dynamic secret types. I'm not going to read it out to you at this point in time, but that's what Vault allows you to be able to do and provides you the option to be able to do it. What's nice is that, well, you can use this and download it right from learn.hashicorp. We'll show you how to be able to do that for your various platforms. You don't even have to. You can go to cloud.hashicorp.com nowadays, which is our HashiCorp Cloud platform, where Console and Vault are available for you to be able to have push button deployment right now. So really, really fast, it's easy, it's free, at least for now. I think it'll give you for being able to create your own Vault clusters to go and try it around, play around with it, hook it into your different auth methods, try the different engines out for how to be able to maintain your creds in a simple workflow. And again, here's just being able to create a cluster real quickly with the given configuration, and it allows it out there. What's nice is that it creates its own hash so that you can actually plug this into your own infrastructure in time and still be very secure that you're not sharing your network necessarily. Some of the things that you will see coming out, 1.7 is just around the corner. So there'll be a Snowflake engine. There'll be ability to have a secrets engine for TFB and Terraform Cloud. You'll be able or have a provider for nice secret stores. And then some of these other things like KMIP allows us to be able to do that rotation of those passwords. And then in the future, you'll see a whole list of pretty cool different ways that how to make sure that privilege, access management, encryption, and identity management are even evolved further than what we already have in the platform today. So if I was going to put this together and how to actually apply these tools in a workflow, this is what there's two different sets of audiences here. We have our cloud platform operators that will, go and deploy their infrastructure as code and policy as code and push it up as a commit or have a merge request. Then actually go and invoke the plan and apply that I showed you before with Terraform to make sure that it goes through Sentinel to check it out to being deployed. And then when we have a given app dev team, since we typically separate those groups out, they'll have a change commit, based off of a merge request from their app code repo, which will hit their CI pipeline, which will do all the given unit tests, do its build, do its shifted left security, your static analysis, dynamic analysis, container supply chain, what have you, in order to be able to Terraform the job. One part I didn't mention is that we actually can hook in with Jenkins or with or Circle CI or you name it, GitLab, etc. Vault to be able to go out, get a credential, say this is, please give me my credentials for when I do this build. I have the username and passwords I need in order to be able to create that app, to be able to push it out and get it deployed out to the outside world. And so here's an example that is at one of the largest credit card companies in the world. They're using Packer, which I really didn't talk about. It's one of our projects that allows you to be able to build images for your various different clouds or otherwise. So Google uses it. They talk Keynote. Amazon uses it. So does Azure in order to be able to build templates. But the whole idea that they're using it for is for their CI/CD pipeline. So They have a base build for Jenkins, and then they have a second image template with all the plugins and groovy startup scripts, be able to do some pretty cool authentication, to be able to fire it off for the builders. And in this case, they have the various different choices based off of that same template of what target architecture they'd like. So whether it's Hyper-V or QEMU, VirtualBox, vSphere, a typical AMI, OpenStack, there's a whole bunch of them out there. And then once they're actually done creating the given image, they actually use a provisioner to be able to do a lot of the configurations with the particular files, kick off an Ansible role in a playbook rather to do the configuration, and then apply some post processors, whether I push those images up into a repo or what have you, in order to be able to create both a Jenkins master image as well as a Jenkins agent image that then gets kicked off by the workflow in Terraform to provision it out to vSphere, as well as in this particular case to OpenShift, where they'll have a ton of different agents out there. And why are they doing all this? Well, one is they tear it down every single night and you can just reconnect it back up. But much like SolarWinds had challenges with their supply chain, CVs are patched all the time and they're constantly on the latest and greatest image. You know, the plugins are always configured and up to date. They got the ability to scale up very, very quickly with the agents across their Kubernetes cluster so that the builds were very, very fast. And there's no need to ever worry about downtime. They download the internet's Maven of all of the dependency trees and have it built right within that image on a nightly for any given build that gets submitted. So this gives you a whole lot of parity between their dev environments and their production environments, as well as a way to make sure that they are constantly up to date and never had too much of a downtime. And with that, I think that was the end of the show. I can show you a little bit of what we have here is HashiCorp Cloud, where I have a Vault cluster running that has nothing in it, unfortunately, at this point in time. Today was one of those kind of days that was just real painful, unfortunate. So appreciate your time. I'll pause here for if there's any questions or comments.
Yes, if you have any questions, please come off mute. Feel free to ask, or if you just want to type something in the chat window, feel free to do that as well.
A good job. I love Terraform. I love HashiCorp. What a great organization. What was that black icon at the bottom of all the different clouds that I know? Was that a HashiCorp Cloud icon?
Black icon. Let's see what we got here.
You had a diagram that had all the three major clouds in it, and then there was one at the bottom, and it had a little black.
Yeah. Oh, Ali Cloud, Alibaba.
Oh, that was Alibaba.
Yeah.
Oh, and is that considered number 4 now?
It's grown really rapidly. It is.
I had no
number 4
idea,
at this
man.
point in time.
Wow.
My favorite custom service from Ali Cloud is the pig farmer service. They have AI that'll listen to how your pigs sound and be able to provide you advice on it. They kid you not. So you can build that into your apps.
Say what?
Yep.
A pig like a hog.
Yes. Agricultural AI.
Good grief.
Pig farm and Ali, you need to go take a look at it. But if anybody does need to get up and running on Terraform or on Vault, then my recommendation is go to HashiCorp.com. It's a great spot to get started. A lot of good step-by-step tutorials on it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get a little bit more involved with something like Instruct, which is I'll put it, you have a copy of it, but there's a lot of half-day workshops that walk you through getting this up and running with AWS or with Azure or GCP, etc.
We're using Skitch with Terraform to do DDL and DevOps for Snowflake. So
Oh, cool.
it's kind of cool stuff.
So Ray, we have a question out there. Do you see a lot of clients utilizing Terraform for deploying multi-cloud infrastructure?
Oh, absolutely. So we have customers that are using this outside of the cloud at all. I mean, some banks who just see the benefit of going to infrastructure as code and DevOps, to those that are using it for a hybrid or for multi-cloud. Because look at, when you think about it, any organization of any significant size, they're going to, that's by intention or by accident. So folks will want to be able to pick up Spanner and Bigtable, let's say, right? Because they have great data tools in GCP and want to have a competitive advantage. Well, that makes sense to then have, a primary cloud and a secondary for whatever those types of workloads are. And then all of a sudden, guess what also happens in large organizations? They buy other organizations. And the M&A team does not care about what your IT ops stack is. They really don't. So even some of the cloud natives out of the Bay Area, the unicorns that we work with on a regular occasion that are real intentional about sticking with one particular cloud stack, guess what? They found a use case with another group that was an adjacent use case. So instead of just being purely on GCP, they're on GCP and Azure. The stuff will happen. There's one of the major hotel chains want to enter China. It requires you to be able to run upon their servers. In Terraform, they added some providers for Alley Cloud. Instead of taking 6 months to do 3 weeks in order to be able to accelerate visioning out and presence in China. So a lot of times what it really comes down to with each one of our projects is workflow. 5 years ago, the tech that was the tech that was the bright shiny is not the tech that it is today. Will not be the tech within 5 years. So the more we can abstract away the various different new workflows of how Azure ARM works versus CloudForms or whatever with AWS, the easier it is for you to be able to have and maintain and build out a lot more maturity around your given workflows. And that kind of same concept applies to every single one of the techs in our stack. It's Vault because you don't want to have to nuances between Azure Active Directory and AWS's IAMs, local, or with console, same concepts apply, and as well as with Nomad.
Gotcha. Anybody else have any questions?
What's the best way to get the most proficient in Terraform, you think?
Oh, great question. So we do actually have, of course, let me see if I can share it, pull it up. The certifications now. So right now we have the 101 level, but we're getting to 201 in a second.
Will you send it out to the group?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
But if I go to Terraform, go take a look at learn.terraform.com. It's the certification link. Here we go, certification prep for the associate exam. But I'll add that into the deck and into the notes as well. But there's a review, sample questions, great books is another thing to be. But it's a real time saver once you get used to it. I use it on my build and then destroy stuff on a. And here we go, chat.
Wish I could use it to clean my house.
I kid you not, though, there is a provisioner that actually will let you order a pizza. So at the end of that bill, it'll fire off, invoke the.
Oh, who is the guy who did
variables.
that? Who came up with that one?
I don't know, but it's pretty cool. We use it actually as part of the labs at our conference for the talks when we can talk to people in person.
Does it only let you get 2 pizzas?
I've never tried it myself, honestly, so I can't tell you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that link. Any other questions?
Great job.
Well, greatly appreciate much. Don't be shy. Hit me up on LinkedIn, or like I said, Kyle is a local member and a great resource for your community. So, James, thanks so much for being so open and providing me the opportunity to speak here today.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for joining, Ray. Very great content. We like the demos and kind of get a lot more in depth in this area. So thanks for showing that and giving us the roadmap, etc. Again, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us a lot of great content.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Hey, while some of you are still here,